So I was explaining this whole kind of situation, trying to explain it from start to finish. I put up 2 videos so far addressing this. I've spoken to my wife about Mr. Cunnan and Sinn Féin, how they promoted that page that he sent my wife the friend request was a fake profile, and she wants to come on camera herself and make a video and address it herself, so I'll do that in the next video if I can. But getting back to the whole kind of situation regarding kind of how I ended up in that kind of weird religion, the Baha'i, and it was run by a psychologist employed by Waterford Tussle. They roped in numerous parties basically of this kind of sexual slander in an effort basically to hide that this woman was involved in a case where there was an alleged sexual abuse. I was a witness in the case. It was regarding my family. She shouldn't have been anywhere near my family. It's nothing to do with me. See my other videos if you look back at it. But I spoke about how my ex, she stayed in the religion. I left the religion. Just to bring it up to scratch there now. She was on a podcast there a couple of months ago. I spoke about this in the last video and she defamed me and libelled me. I don't want to go into too much about that as it's in kind of other people's hands to deal with at the moment. They're after taking out some of the comments that she made, and I'm still not happy with it, being honest with you. So I'm going to take it further. So I'll wait that out, but I'll get back to you. But in 2015, she was still in this religion with my kids. I left. My father passed away in January 2015. So in February then I went down and I started all legal proceedings, brought her to court for access, custody and guardianship, despite her lies on the podcast saying how much she was up and down to court, trying to make it look like she was at the bring me to court. I brought her to court. It's what happens. I'm trying to read off some kind of notes here now because there's a lot kind of to mention and I tend to forget. So I seen a solicitor out in Tramore, a male solicitor, and I hired him. And I explained the situation about how I ended up in this religion, stroke cult, whatever you want to call it, and how we were lured into it by this psychologist employed by Waterford Tussle. And there was another incident then that of why I don't like Waterford Tussle, let's just put it that way. When I was 15, I got a young one pregnant. She was 22, 23. I know I was too young, stupid as they say, but like it is what it is. And I think I was about 16 then, and I went out one day and I came back and someone was after ringing Tussle, and they were after talking her into telling her that she needed a break for a couple of days away from the child and made her sign the forms basically. So she signed the forms under pretense thinking that they were taking the kids for a couple of days to give her a break, and basically the child ended up in foster care. They never gave the child back. They basically duped her. She's dead now, so I don't really want to speak too much about the woman. She's after passing away. So as you could see, I have a serious issue with Waterford Tussle between that incident and this psychologist. So when I went to the solicitor, I explained all this to the solicitor in Tramore, and he agreed with me. So we ordered a report to be done. It's called a Section 20 or a Section 22, I think. And we requested an independent person come and do the report based on Waterford Tussle's involvement previously in my life, and basically I didn't trust them. So a person was picked, Dr. Teresa Graham from Tramore. She has a good name. That's what we settled on. So we both agreed on that. At this time leading up to court, my ex wouldn't let me see the kids. She would only let me see the kids and my sister was present. She kept pushing this. Now, bearing in mind that I was at the more or less rearing the kids up until this point. So I was missing the kids were missing me. And I said no, obviously at the start, but eventually then I started missing the kids more and more. So I said, okay then. So my sister, she begrudgingly kind of said, okay, that she'd come out and kind of sit with us with the kids. And then I found out that my ex was after going around telling people, she's after more or less kind of planting the seed that would make people think more or less that I was abusing the kids. I know that sounds nasty, but that's basically it. And it's kind of hard to talk about, but I'm kind of comfortable now talking about it because it's been so long in the too. But this is what she done. And she told people around Tramore that my sister was actually a social worker that was coming and supervising me. Now I didn't know any of this at the time, neither did my sister. So we were going around and it looked like my sister was a social worker coming around because she was accompanied with us. One day then we stopped at the supermarket and my sister waited in the car, and I walked in on my own into the supermarket in Tramore with the kids, and I was wondering why everyone was kind of looking at us with their mouth open. And I found out then afterwards what she was after kind of going around and spreading, and she went ballistic then, because it wasn't really about having my sister around with the kids. It was about kind of me being paraded around with my sister and told to make it look like she was a social worker to support the lies that she was after spreading. So there was multiple kind of at the start we were going in there to court constantly kind of, she was trying to say that I went mad after my father had only died. My father was only dead a couple of weeks at this stage, and she was saying that he's mentally ill and all this stuff. I was had to give him clean urines. I had a parenting agreement where I had the kids 6 days a week, and she was saying that I was at the one mentally insane. So the judge asked me, would I be willing to wait and do a psychiatric evaluation? So what I done is I went and I volunteered for one myself. So it took a couple of months to get on that because there was a waiting list, and the waiting list was so long. I ended up actually paying for the psychiatric evaluation myself, and I got the all clear. Everything was all grand, but obviously that took a couple of months and had her kind of nasty mind games, and she won't let me see the kids and kind of all this horrible stuff. So as I said, we had this kind of Dr. Teresa Graham to do the report. I had a male solicitor out in Tramore. Then I was advised that being it's a family law case that I'd be better off with a female solicitor. So I took the advice from this person and I kind of changed solicitor. Now I had a male solicitor from Tramore and I changed, and it wasn't because of anything he done or any kind of it wasn't because he done anything bad or anything like this. I just changed because I was told to have a woman solicitor. So I got a woman solicitor who again was from Tramore. And as the kind of court cases went on, I noticed this woman solicitor, she was never ever, never ready. Every time, my ex would get up in the box, she'd spin all these lies with her crocodile tears, and kind of, me solicitor was never ready. And I was wondering what was going on there now, and then she was so pally-wally with my ex's solicitor, then I was starting to get a weird feeling of her. Then one morning, they were after moving the courthouse. It was out on Tramore Road at the time because we were renovating it. And I lodged the proceedings originally in Waterford City where the courthouse was, but they were after moving out to Tramore Road. And I went in early one morning. I got the bus. I was living out Tramore at the time. And I got the bus in early, and I was standing in the hall. And in the hall you could see through another hall, I know that probably sounds strange, but they all have glass doors. And I seen from the consultation room, I seen my solicitor come out of the consultation room with me ex and her solicitor. This was down Tramore Road. So this really kind of got me thinking, to be honest with you. And then I found out afterwards that my own solicitor was after changing the person coming to do the report. The Dr. Teresa Graham that I had, who was independent, she told me that she would look down her nose and treat me this way and treat me that way, and that she's after changing for this other person. Now I know that Dr. Teresa Graham is not like this. I've been since informed that she's actually very unbiased and very fair. And she was changed. And basically she changed to this other person. She said she didn't know this person. I obviously told her about my issues with Tussle and how I didn't like him and I didn't trust him, and this psychologist who was basically pushing me ex and who's kind of so heavily involved in Tussle. And she said that this woman coming to do the report wasn't part of Waterford Tussle. She has nothing to do. She was up from around County Meath, that she didn't know of her. So kind of I accepted it. Now I found out a couple of months later down the road that she actually had this woman on several of her cases. This woman was part of Waterford Tussle. This woman was actually an acquaintance of the psychologist that I'm talking about in Waterford Tussle. And not only that, she had a terrible name for writing reports that were so badly written against men. She had a terrible, terrible name. And my solicitor knew all this, and she kept it from me, told me that she didn't know who this person was. So there was all kinds of drama going on in court. Court went on, I think, for about 17 months, if I'm being honest with you. The lies from me ex constantly throwing me the death of my father in my face, trying to provoke me in the courtroom. Then they went on summer holidays. So obviously I didn't see the kids then. on the summer holidays then, because I know where to see him, and then she wouldn't let me see him. So then she would say, why don't you come up to Dublin and see the kids in a restaurant? So I was after meeting me now wife, so she used to accompany me up. So we used to get the train up, and we get off the train. And I don't know if you know where Ballymun is from the train, but it's about a 2 hour walk from the train station. And I'd have like a sack of toys from my mother, and my own sack of toys and stuff. So we'd walk out and supposed to meet you in a restaurant, and she changed the restaurant 5 minutes before we get there. She changed the restaurant, and she done this several times. And on the last time she done it 4 times on the last time. And I ended up meeting the kids. I think it was in the last coffee shop, up at the airport, in Dublin Airport, which was like a 2.5 hour walk. We were out there walking through the rain, myself and my wife. So when I came back then, like I said, I had enough. I wasn't doing that anymore. This is the kind of games that was being played. So then she started dropping the kids down to me, down the Waterford, coming down to see me then. And she was being brought down. She would come down to Waterford, for these visits, right? And she'd have this local, he's a member of Waterford Freewheelers, basically, motorcycle club. But he'd come along driving our car, wearing all these patches, trying to intimidate me, basically. And obviously I have to listen to her bullshit now, being honest with you, is really what it was. But she'd come down and drop the kids down, and I'd see the kids, and kind of like, then we go back to the whole court situation, because the court would be back on. She'd go back and not let me see the kids. She'd only use the kids basically if it was to kind of like turn the screw and cause major issue. So basically, so I had nowhere to see the kids, and I was explaining this in court, and she was explaining that she didn't feel safe with the kids around me, like judging that my mental illness that I apparently had. And it got to the point now, after I'd done the psychiatric evaluation, where the judge ended up telling her basically to shut up, that she wasn't a doctor. That's how much she was trying to push this in court. So then the judge adjourned the case to get a report from this place that would supervise the visits, and I didn't really want to do it. I was after doing the supervised visits with my sister, when you think about it, but just to get the ball rolling, I agreed. So I done it up in Dublin, up in Ballymun is where I was, where the same thing. I'd get the train up, and I'd walk out, take me 2 hours to walk out with presents, and I kind of got to know the people in the place. There was a couple of visits in there, and I kind of got to know the people. They were okay now, and kind of I done the visits, and on the last visit then, when we got back to court then, my ex, she said that because I was ringing the kids obviously in between, kind of ringing them in the evening, and she said that I called the kids weirdos on the phone. Now she was recording the phone calls all this time now, because there was a huge echo on the phone. When I'd ring up, there'd be an echo on the phone, and when I'd say something on the phone, it would echo and echo and echo and echo. And when the child would go to answer me back, like I wouldn't be able to hear the child, because she'd be echoing, and it'd be vice versa. And we were just laughing about it on the phone, saying how weird it was. That was it. And she went into court and said that I called the kids weirdos. And she said that she was at losing the recording, basically. So the judge said I'd have to start again, these supervised visits again. So I wasn't happy, obviously. And obviously my solicitor was never ready again. Plotting with the other solicitor is what they were. And that's the only way to describe it. Like, there was some strange goings on from my own solicitor at this stage. So basically I had to start the supervised visits again. This would be my third time, and the judge requested that I get a report from the place this time, that they give an unbiased report. So they gave the report after the third time, said I was a great father, that the kids were fine with me, that I was actually taking up space in the place, and they couldn't understand why I was up there. But when I was up there, they asked me who was this small woman. She was about 5 foot tall, with short, kind of greyish blonde hair, that approached with me ex. She tried to pretend that she worked with the woman that was doing the report. She obviously pulled her file. She said that she knew her from 15, 20 years ago, working down the country. Obviously, as I said, she pulled her file because she knew, but the woman turned around and said that she was still in contact with everyone she worked with, and she knew 100% sure. She was 100% sure that she wasn't ever after working with this person. So you want left immediately with me ex. So in court then, when I had the report, I brought up this person. This is this psychologist now in Tussle, And I brought this up in court to try and show that like my ex was being guided by Waterford Tussle. If you notice even now, she has the backing of Tussle for some reason constantly. Like, nobody else would be able to start the business or like get the push or the pull that she has from Waterford Tussle. But I brought this up in court, and then my ex, to try and remove this place in Dublin, Men's Network it's called, she went over on the day of the court, but when she got home, she went in and caused so much grief in the place, the Men's Network. They rang me that evening and said that she was barred, that she was never ever allowed to set foot in the place again. She basically went in, she threatened that she had friends and connections in Tussle and she'd have the place closed down and all this kind of. She basically went in and showed her true nature, if I'm being honest with you. And that's what happened. But I had the report anyway, and I presented that to the judge. And the judge accepted it. And to be honest with you, he was after starting to catch out me ex with her lies. There were so many lies that she started to trip herself up, being honest with you. Like, and that's the way it was. So the judge was actually getting fed up with it. So he awarded me the kids, made a court order where I take both kids. Now I'm only the biological father of one of the kids, but he gave me both the kids. I'm going to take one child without the other child. So he awarded me both the kids. I was supposed to collect them on a Friday, drop them back Sunday. Went up to the train station Friday, no show. She pretended that the kids were sick or something. Had to wait then 2 weeks because you have to give them time apparently. So I went up 2 weeks later, and I forget even what the excuse is. It's on one of my websites anyway, I think. But then I had to wait again because you have to wait 3 times and you have to give them time to get the next train if they miss. So basically I would stand around in Dublin train station all day waiting for her. And then on the 3rd time, I remember she just turned the phone off then, basically. So I went back to court, got her reordered. I was pushing for, I wanted her to be reprimanded basically, because if that was a man that was after breaking a court order, it'd be a totally different story. So basically the judge didn't really know what to do. He was waiting for the report to come back from this apparent independent person. To come back, so the report eventually came back from this, what we thought was an independent person. She was actually an associate of this psychologist of who I'm talking about in Waterford Tussle, and it was 99% lies. You would not believe the lies that was in this report. It was like, and I wasn't allowed to even read the report. I was only going by what my own solicitor was delighted coming back telling me. She made it her business to come down. My sister was in court at the time. She came out to my sister and told my sister all this horrible, like it was just blatant lies, told my sister all this horrible stuff. And my sister got so upset then, to be honest with you. She texted that evening. It was a adjourned for 1 day, sorry. And my sister got so upset. She rang me that evening and said that she couldn't cope with the lies in my ex and that she was going to pull out. So, like, do you know what I mean? Like, but my solicitor would have known that this was potentially what was going to happen if she went out and told my sister all these lies that was in the report. And they were blatant lies. They weren't even like kind of embellished truths. They were like just blatant lies. And that's what happened. So this woman that came to do the report, I'm not sure if I can say her name. I look into if I can say her name. I had her mobile phone number from when she called to me, right? So I went back to her mobile phone and I was like, why aren't you in court? Because she said she was going to be in court on the day and she got the fright of her life when I rang her, basically. And this is no word of a lie. She pretended that her dog had just died. And I know that probably sounds over the top. She actually literally pretended, she said, oh my God, my dog has just died. And she hung up and blocked me. At this stage then, I had found out who this person was that came to do the report. I had approached my solicitor saying that she knew who this person was, that she basically duped me. I also found out they had a meeting behind me back down in Waterford Courts and tried to transfer my case up to Dublin. And I found out because I got the refusal from the court was posted out to me. That's how I found out. And when I approached my solicitor, Waterford solicitor, her attitude as well, she didn't get what she wanted, so what's her problem? That was her attitude. Like the report that came back from this supposed independent person was not more than a hatchet job. It was blatant lies about me. It was like talking about me, like kind of like taking drugs and all this. Now I was after giving voluntary clean urines. The only drugs I took was when my ex was bringing them down from Dublin, which is what she's hiding there now, going around in her podcast where she does nothing but talk about herself in an effort to try and clean up her image. I'm in the process of getting an affidavit from someone, and I will show you exactly what we were doing. Like, I've never lied. I've never said that she was taking drugs and I wasn't taking drugs. I've only ever spoken the truth. And what I meant, another thing I meant to go back to as well, when my ex, when she was coming down to Waterford and she's having your man of the freewheelers trying to threaten me, basically driving around in her car. If she needed protection, right, she would have gone to the Waterford Gardaí, and she wouldn't have been allowed to bring the kids down if she needed protection. Plus the fact she comes from a huge family, a huge dangerous family. But for some reason, she couldn't tell them what she was after doing. So what was it that she was after doing that she couldn't tell her family, when you think about it? So this court kind of went on for about 17, 18 months, and I was going back and forth. I'm not sure, there's probably a dozen different sittings, and the judge just couldn't get. He said it himself. He said he's never come across a person like her before, that he can't get any good out of her. And they were pushing, trying to have the case pushed up to Dublin, because I was after giving me solicitor. I told me solicitor that my ex was going around saying that if I got the kids, I was going to kill myself and the kids. Obviously, I wasn't. Do you know what I mean? Why would I? But I just wanted to see, would this information get passed from my solicitor to the other side. And within 20 minutes, I was called into the courtroom, and it was thrown at me by her solicitor. So basically I found out then, and outside then I said to my solicitor, I said, I told you that, and there was no one actually saying it. So she knew, and I knew, that she's had to been passing information, as I always thought. So this solicitor, as you could imagine, was kind of like caught by the balls. And later on, when I tried to get my file back, I'll get to that because I'm trying to keep it in a timeline. She edited me file. She had 5 years to retain me file. And after 4 years, 1 month, when I got my file was after being edited, or in her words, destroyed. So, like, I'll talk about that when I get to it. But this was in 2016. So my ex, she left out kind of in 2014. Like, we were still taking drugs and all this kind of, like, we were in this Bahoy thing. I wanted out of it, as I said. But we were still taking drugs. She was bringing the drugs down from Dublin. She was getting them cheaper up there. She wasn't saying nothing about the heroin she was getting up there. I only found out about that when they rang me up and started threatening. Like, when you think about it, like, my ex, she spent all this time at the start of wanting my sister present so she can go around and tell people that she was a social worker. Do you know what I mean? And then she cuts the back off her in this report. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she had no contact with my sister whatsoever. None whatsoever. And she went from that to that. And my solicitor doesn't call her out. My solicitor spent all the time flapping her around with paperwork. And that is no word of a lie. And I kept catching her more and more with her lies and her whispers with the other solicitor. And, like, it was so obvious that they were trading information, basically. Like, as I get to it, I'll show you the documentation, the supporting documentation regarding the lack of professionalism by the solicitor, local solicitor. From what I understand, who ran to a local TD to try and get assistance to stop it all coming out, basically. As for this kind of Bahoy religion, what I spoke about in my last 2 videos, they more or less, at first they denied it, made me look like I was kind of crazy, and it's hard to have like the death of your father thrown at you, and missing the kids, and then try to portray that you're saying. But eventually then I remember that she had a tattoo, which she has, my ex has a tattoo on her wrist of this a star symbol, and inside the star of this Bahoy. So I was able to prove that this religion played a very large part of it. And not only that, the HSE started trying to push this religion. They were basically trying to counteract what I was going around saying about it, because I was telling people the truth of what was going on. And for the HSE to be pushing this, they really should look into it, because this is very, very unethical. So I got a bit ahead of myself there. So I meant to say, towards the end of 2015, This was the first time that sexual slander was spread. That was done out in Tramore by, I can't say her name for now. I'll say her initials though, it's AW. And she was a neighbour of mine living in Apollonian Suites, and my ex dropped down the kids on the Friday, collected them on the Sunday, and then all this kind of pornography was spread around on a Tuesday. It was spread everywhere out in Tramore where I was living. Even put into my caretaker's letterbox, it was put everywhere, absolutely everywhere, in an effort to try and discredit me. And that was the first time that was done, at the end of 2015. So obviously I rang the guards, as you would. Guards came along, they spoke to me, I told them what was after happening, I told them who was behind it. They went up and they spoke to this woman who was my neighbour. She denied knowing me, she denied knowing my ex, didn't know what I was talking about, and didn't know what we was talking about. Everyone in Tramore knew what I was talking about. A lot of you will even know now what I'm talking about. But about 2 weeks after that, then it was in court, and she came in and she sat down next to my ex in court, laughing and joking away, skitting and so obviously they did know each other, and as I said, they had contact. And my solicitor was keen to point out, who's that with your ex, constantly pointing out, trying to get me to look over, because I was trying to ignore her. I knew they were trying to provoke me and do everything and that, and so I would constantly ignore her. And but this is what happened. So I showed that they did have links, and she dropped the kids down on the Friday to the Sunday, and this was all spread around on the Tuesday. Then as I said, then the court orders that was made, the court orders actually that was made, my ex won't give me back photographs of my father who had passed away only a couple of months before that. The judge found this strange, to say the least, so he made a court order, as well as the court order, where I was supposed to take the kids every second weekend, which he broke, by the way. But he made a court order that she was to give back the photographs, and even to this day, that was in 2015, and it's 2023 now, she hasn't sent one of them photographs back. She did send me down a picture of her mother 10 days after my mother passed in 2021, because that's the nature of this person. And around this time then, this whole sexual slander that was spread out in Tramore, this would have been towards the end of 2015. The courts were breaking for Christmas holidays, and she sent me down this letter out of nowhere, posted down to me, and it said at the start of the letter, due to my unthinkable actions towards the kids. Now obviously you put two and two together, and we all know what she was really getting at, this is the kind of poison that she was after, promoting and kind of pushing around Tramore, eager to try and get me to leave, because people were starting to question her, how come you're saying X, Y and Z, but yet you're dropping down the kids to them? It doesn't make any sense. So she was mad to try and provoke me. And it took me, when the courts came back, it took me months and months of trying to get my solicitor to bring this up. To me, it was an important letter, and it should have been addressed in court. And I virtually had to go up and just hand the letter to the judge. That's how bad it got, because my solicitor kept forgetting about it. It's everything I have. It's like my parent agreement. She kept forgetting to hand it in. How can you forget to hand in the parenting agreement when I had the kids 6 days a week? But anyway, I handed it in. The judge read it, and he asked her to clarify what she meant. And she got up and she said, "Oh, I only meant that they had to move to Dublin, that he's a great father. I would never employ anything like that." Now, those that be watching this video knows very well that she's employed even worse around town. Do you know what I mean? She's on a podcast there, when realistically they're just a kind of a way of her talking about herself. There's no talking about, can I speak about this? Actually, I can't speak about it. She spoke about selling heroin herself. You've yet to hear her say that how she regretted selling heroin. Do you know what I mean? Or how she regretted hurting any of these people. She's on podcast talking about how much she loved taking crack and how much she loved taking drugs and all this. Should she not be showing some kind of remorse? Do you know what I mean? So obviously then, as I started putting two and two together, and I kept catching my solicitor out, and after they had that meeting in court, trying to have my case transferred up to Dublin behind me back without me being present, and I only found out only because I got a letter of refusal in the courtroom, but this is what they were trying to push. The judge didn't know what to do. He was after getting fed up of her lies. He was after making the orders, giving me both the kids. given the photographs. He didn't really know what to do. He said he never ever dealt with a woman like her before. So he said that he was going to send it into the circuit court, and I said I didn't want it. I said I didn't want it going into the circuit court because they were going to push to try and have it being sent to Dublin. And he said he was going to leave notes on the case to say that that I had done everything that the courts had asked, and that he could not get any good out of this woman, that she broke every court order. That's basically what he said, and he transferred it into the circuit court. And he said he'd leave the notes on it, and that's what happened. That took almost a year and a half to get through that, and that was a quick synopsis of what happens, because you wouldn't believe the mind games and nastiness from this person that went on. But as I said, she broke every court order, lied her way through court, left out the whole religion thing and all that. And the reason they left that out, because as I said, that psychologist had previous engagements with my family where I was a witness in the case. So if that was to ever really actually come out, there'd be major heads to roll, I'd imagine. When the case then was eventually transferred into the circuit court, I was far from happy, because I wanted my ex reprimanded. Because if it was a man that was either breaking the court orders, I felt like a man would have been reprimanded. And there was no push to have a reprimand or whatsoever. She was after breaking multiple orders over and over again. And she actually laughed at me outside the courtroom and said nothing had been done. And she was actually right, realistically. But nothing was done. And I went outside and I told my solicitor that I knew everything, that I knew for a long time that she was swapping information back and forth. I knew about this person that came to do the report, of how she had a bad name and how she was previously on a cases belonged to her, and that she was engaged with Waterford Tussle, and she basically lied to me, and I basically sacked her. And I said, as soon as I leave this courtroom, I'm going to go out and make a complaint about you. And I left the courthouse, and by the time I got the bus back out to Tramore, she was after leaving the courthouse. She doesn't work too far from the courthouse. The courthouse was back in town at the time. And she was after leaving the courthouse, running over and lodging a complaint against me before I got out to Tramore on the bus to lodge a complaint about her. And my complaint was met with by the Legal Aid Board. She was after making a complaint about me, and kind of nothing would come of my complaint, which I thought was irrelevant, because she could still make a complaint about me and I should still be able to make a complaint about her. When the circuit court then came around, and basically I went down to Legal Aid and I explained the situation to him and got a new solicitor. Well, I couldn't really get a solicitor, if I'm being honest with you, because my name's had been blackened that much, because no solicitor in Waterford wants to hear what this other solicitors are doing, and that's basically essentially what it is. They all cover each other's back. So the manager said that as a once off that he would come down and represent me on the day, so I gave him the day. The day he appeared in the circuit court, and he never turned up. So I went into the circuit court on my own, had no legal aid, and I explained to the judge, look, I prefer to have a solicitor and have a short adjournment. As a woman judge, she nearly took the fucking head off me. She said no. Basically, my ex's solicitor was there now. She should have had a barrister because it was a circuit court, but she was there to push that I was objecting to the case being moved to Dublin, and I was like, that's not what the case is about. The case is about actually her breaking all the court orders, and if you look through your notes, that's what I was about. And to cut a long story short, then she gave me 5 minutes to try and explain. I think it was 17 months and probably a dozen court sittings. So after about a minute of speaking, she just cut across me and transferred my case up to Dublin. I was given the wrong date then in Dublin for my court case, and I was up there sitting there on a Thursday, and my case was at them called on a Tuesday without my knowledge, and I was at them being thrown out. So as you could imagine, that was a quick kind of version, because I didn't want to be kind of going on a bit too much. But you can see the kind of faults and the unprofessionalism in that case. Now, if I could prove that, obviously there would be some serious issues, and I can prove that. I have multiple paperwork and documents, and this is why, if you notice, this won't be looked into. It's constantly me on videos, and you think they would investigate, even to just prove me wrong and then hold me accountable and drag me through the courts and uphold the integrity of the courts. Do you know what I mean? At the moment there now, I'm dealing with my ex. For some reason, she's been supported by Tussle. I've already pointed out the connection between her and the psychologist in Tussle. There's no other startup business in Ireland that would get the support that she's getting from Tussle for some reason. Not to mention how she was able to skip the house and list up in Dublin. There's multiple things, and I'm going to go into all of that because what she said in that podcast, you can check it out. It's on the Two Norries if you want. I think they edited out a couple of seconds, which I'm not happy with, and I'm going to probably go and see a solicitor, being honest with you. I'll wait and see what they want to do further. But as soon as she's after bringing it into the public arena there now, I'm going to speak about it, what she's after saying, and tell the actual truth. Something that eludes her. So that kind of brings it to the end. That was the end of 2016. And as I said, all that kind of pornography and stuff was after being spread by my neighbour who came in and sat in the courthouse. That ended up being given into, he's not my landlord, he would have been a caretaker, say. And he got me evicted based on that. Basically, I was paying him, I said this in the previous video, it was actually Raz got me the Waterford Council, Raz, not sure if they're still going, but they got me the apartment. I was paying $500 a month. He was moaning about how the rents had gone back up to $700 because the property boom was actually, after passing kind of was 500 and 600, and I was after giving him €50 here and there, and 50 there, and then it was 600, and then it was 700, and then at one stage then he wanted 750. Now he's not even a landlord, he was only the caretaker, so I basically told him where to go, if I'm being honest with you. So he actually reported my wife for living with me. I was after going down and registering my wife and everything, like with the housing office and in the dole, but he was after going down, sneaking down and trying to get us, that was one way he tried to get us evicted. And this person, he kept our deposit. Pat Doyle is his name. I don't need to keep him kind of his name out. Little thief kept me deposit. He actually went down, got me arrested. Then I approached him to get me a deposit back, and he rang the guards saying that I was threatening him and all this kind of stuff. And he produced a witness, but the witness turned out to be his best friend. And then he swore blind that there was no deposit ever paid, and I got brought to court, and I had to attend court once or twice. And halfway through the court, then I was actually lucky enough to find a tenancy agreement, and it showed his statement where he was swearing that there was no deposit paid. Basically showed him out to be a liar, and that's who's running Apollonia Apartments out in Tranmore. So basically I ended up getting evicted, and that was in kind of 2016. And that was after kind of nearly a year and a half of going through them shitty courts in Waterford, where they were so unequal. It was unbelievable. My ex would come down and she would just lie her way from one court sitting to the next. I was actually paying for all her petrol to come up and down to the courts and everything. It was just ridiculous. And she would lie. She would freely just lie. I was given clean urines. She was not asked to do any of this. She wouldn't let no one speak to the kids, so she was allowed to lie at will. It was just ridiculous. I was bringing up this religion, which we were a part of, and she was denying it at first. She got to deny that for a year. Made me look like mad. And as you do sound mad when you're talking about cults and stuff, if I'm being honest with you. But she denied it for a year, and then it's only when I remember that she had the tattoo on her wrist, she just changed her story. It was like, oh yeah, she is part of that. And that's who's pushing this whole kind of business thing that she's throwing around there now, saying that she's working with Tussle. Her and that psychologist in Waterford Tussle both need investigating. I can tell you that now. Yes, so that brings it up to the end of 2016. And as I said, I ended up getting evicted then over this kind of sexual shamey shit that was done. This is a thing done in the Baha'i culture, kind of what they do. Suppresses people, humiliates people, and it suppresses them and ostracizes them. Crazy stuff. But anyway, I leave it there. And the next thing now I'll be talking about then is when I moved into Barrack Street, because I was housed by Waterford Council. And I moved into Barrack Street there. And that's where I'll talk about Mr. David Cullinane, Sinn Féin TD, and his cronies, and how I ended up kind of how would you say it? engaging with Mr. Cullinane and his cronies, not Sinn Féin. It was Mr. Cullinane now who ran to Sinn Féin for backup when he got copied of bollocks, which is basically the truth of it. And as I said, my wife wants to speak on camera about the kind of like the portrayal that his page was somehow kind of faked and kind of like making us look like liars. Basically, he's the liar. But anyway, I'll talk about that in the next video. So thanks for listening.